Welcome to GrayPrimer.com. My name is Nick, I'm your host, and in today's episode, it's part 2 of our Bone Reaper special. Let's get into this. Okay, so here we go. Day 2's unboxing of the Ossiarch Bonereapers. Where do we start? I know where I want to finish. I want to finish here or here. So, let's do that. We're gonna go for a Mortek Guard first. Yeah, let's do that. We'll have some spells. We'll have some Stalkers. And then we'll have Deathriders. So, actually, whatever I just said, the other way. So let's go. You ready for this? Alright. Mortek Guard, 20 Citadel Miniatures. Ossiarch Bonereapers. These guys mean business. And you got those little glowy eyes. And here we have, I think there are 2 variations. You can go for the spears, and you can go for the swords. So, probably going to mix and match, but let's get into it. Okay. I love it when they come in little trays. It means that when you're building them, you have somewhere to put all the bits and pieces. Here we go. Mortek Guard. Lots of them. Oh, I didn't see the bannerman there. That's kind of cool. And then we have, and it is, glue points are all marked in color. And then lots of variations on weapons. So that's going to be fun. Looks like lots of variations on heads and shields there as well. Yep. So that's going to keep them interesting. Oh, 25mm round bases. And we have 4 sprues. They're duplicates. I'll grab one of those. And these are duplicates as well. So grab one of those. So we have 2 banners. That means we've got 2 banners, which is kind of interesting. Cool. So banners, swords. Kind of details on the swords. Yeah, they're pretty good. It's kind of strange that the way the bones are in these sort of armor sheaths. You know, we're not talking bony feet here. We're talking they're inside these armored boots and everything. Flip it over, see if there's more detail. So they are kind of, it's a strange armor look to them. It's like an alien looking, undead warrior look. Not your traditional, just sort of magically walking around bones. There's a different sort of feel to these. Oh wow, the faces there just kind of, once they came into focus, it was like, ah! You can see their eyeballs in there as well, which is a nice addition. And then we have the other sprue. Cool detail on the shield. Oh, lots of detail on these spears, if that's what they are. I like that. Someone who knows their medieval weaponry is screaming at their television right now. That's a cool looking sword there. So yeah, there's an unusual sort of look to their armor. Definitely not traditional skeletons or anything here. There's something odd, something alien about them, which I really like. It's kind of a refreshing look. Cool. What we got? Horses, or whatever creatures these were when they were alive. I'm not thinking horse. Oh, cool. I wonder if that sort of bolted on, or it had that when it was alive. Got like fangs there. Oh yeah, these are cool creatures. Oh, and the crows up top of the banner as well. I love that with the Ossiarch Bonereapers, there are crows sort of dotted around in the different sets, and you can sort of tell that the crows just follow them around in the battlefield. I don't know whether they're picking little bits of meat off the Bonereapers themselves, or whether the Bonereapers are just such effective killing machines that there's always some food. Got these cavalry bases here. And then we have, let me see, these 3 different sprues. I think they might be. Don't think we're looking at duplicates here. 3 unique sprues. Yep, I think they are. Okay, so on this, got a lovely detailed banner. And again, like I said before, the when I was talking about the big guy yesterday, the detail in the diorama used to be something you had to make yourself if you were going to put them towards Golden Demon. And the likes of these banners, that used to be something you had to do freehand. And now they've got these great pre-molded, sorry. And they've got lovely crows. Another one there. These crows are pretty cool, actually. I just want to flip it over. Yeah, they look good. I got these weird horse-like creatures. All the different head variants. I don't think there's much difference between those. Maybe when they're zoomed in, when I'm building them, I'll be able to tell the subtle differences. The cloth over the horse here, all shredded up. These horses are all in sort of halves. I'm sure they're not called horses, but they'll be called horses for now. And again, lovely detail on the shields. And then our final sprue. More horse halves. Some more great shields. And just, oh, there's that cool one with the horns. With the almost Triceratops looking deal going on at the front. Just notice the back of the manual here is a very nice piece of art. And that's lovely. And then again, the color guide for all the bits. With, you notice from the Warhammer always use this to designate that there's options here for how you want to build it. Yep. And then all of the different rules, and then a really nicely detailed color guide at the back for how you can paint it, just like Warhammer painted. And their paint jobs on their promotional stuff always looks incredible. And I can say from seeing them at UK Games Expo in the cabinets that this is not Photoshop. This is what they actually look like in the real world. They always have the ones from the artwork, the box covers and stuff. They always have them at things like conventions in the cases, and you can have a really good close look at them. They do look just as good as they do on these boxes. So let's get into the Necropolis Stalkers. Yeah. These guys look big. And it looks like there's some variations in weapons here. So you can go for these halberds, or you can go for the swords. And how are you going to carry that? Seriously. Oh, he's got 4 arms, so he's good. That's how he can carry it. Wow. That makes sense. And then this guy's got the extra arm holding the extra sword. Okay. You are forgiven. Because I was about to be like, how can you carry a sword that big? You mutate and grab an extra couple of hands. Nice big bases here. These are 50s, I think. 50 rounds. And then we have our instructions. Okay, so Necropolis Stalkers is one way to build, and then the Mortek Guard is the other way to build. They have different heads as well, or different armor and stuff. Fancy hats, I think, is the term, and shields as well. So these are these halberds, single arm, or in their case, it's a two-handed weapon, but it's on one side. You know how hard that would be to explain? It's a two-handed weapon, but it's a one-sided two-handed weapon. Oh. Anyway. Usual, full color. You can see that symbol again. You can see that it's referring to the variations in all the heads there. And then we have their stats at the back. And we have 2 different sprues. Oh, cool detail there too. Isn't that lovely? And everything's so clearly numbered. Everything is so... I mean, sometimes you're sort of looking around the sprue for a few minutes trying to find, where number 32 is or something. And you might be like, oh, I don't know where it is. And then you go over to the other sprue, then you go back to your original sprue. It's usually on the first sprue you lifted. But, at least they are clearly numbered. The only gripe I have is that sometimes the numbers can be a little like, you might see 56 and think this is 56. But you can normally check around the frame and see that, okay, this is the closest number to this part. So it's normally okay. But on occasion, you might be like, I wonder, does it refer to that or that? But, I generally think they're pretty easy to navigate. Those heads are so cool. Awesome. And then get into this other one. And we have those halberds. The back of the shields with what seems like unnecessary detail, but I love that they do it, leaving all that wood grain there. And the clear hand sort of holding on to it. Oh, it's great to get all those details. Really appreciate they put that amount of effort in. Okay, so that's the Necropolis Stalkers. Okay, and next up we have the Ossiarch Bonereapers Endless Spells. So, I said it before with the other sort of spell boxes. When I saw them, I was like, oh, I'm not sure that this is something I would put money towards. I'm not sure if it's interesting enough. I get that if it's on the battlefield, that it's really good to have these representations of a fire spell or whatever it might be. Sometimes the miniatures didn't really do it for me. Now, these are different. These feel like actual miniatures as well. You got the bird, this sort of multi-skull thing, this sort of skeletal dude sort of writhing around. These are kind of cool. You see them on the back here. Some detail on the base, which looks insanely good. That's cool. That's worth the ticket price alone. Let's get into it. Oh, these are big old bases. Got a cavalry base here. And these ones, I haven't seen these before. Let me just check. Could be 60s? Oh, 65. Okay. So I haven't seen a 65 mil base before. I wonder are they new? Oh, upside down. Oh, 2019. Okay. So yeah, these are new. Haven't seen these before. Such a nerd. And much like the scenery kit from yesterday, the tithe tower thing. Black and white instructions. I imagine it's pretty straightforward inside. Yeah, there's not a huge amount to work out in there. Pretty straightforward. Cool wings, Mr. Bird. And reinforces that kind of, like, this is not just skeletons. There's something alien here. There's something else. Because otherwise there wouldn't be feathers, you know. It would just be kind of a sad looking creature with these sort of like bony arms and this bony body, and that would kind of be it. It would just hop around on the floor. But because this is not your average undead bird, and this is also a spell, it gets to have feathers. And you could have some cool, a lot of fun with paint effects on those. Beautiful to work with. Oh man, look at this base. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this from Games Workshop before. This is haunting. The guts and the gore. Whoa. That'll stay with you. Jeepers. That's good. Seed. Sort of smoky stuff. Don't know. Beak, maybe? Yeah. That's cool. That base with the bodies on it? Oh, man. And some more. So his rib cage and spine. Like an obelisk kind of deal. That must be where the skulls are on top of. Yeah, there's the 4 skulls there. Their bony paws. Wow, that's cool. I mean, on the sprues, that's so much better than I thought it was going to be. That's brill. Let's look at Arch-Kavalos Zandtos. I'm terrible with these pronunciations. I'm so sorry, Warhammer. What we got? Oh yes, and this is the one with the 2 variations of the horse with its feet in the ground and then rearing up. And a very different looking rider. So is this a completely separate dude? Okay. I've noticed that sometimes on Warhammer's webpage, they would have 2 separate listings for these like characters like this, which have 2 clear ways of building them. And I always think that's strange, because if you didn't realize that you could build both in this, or one or the other, in this kit, you might instinctively buy both sets, and then what would arrive through the post would be 2 of these. So I guess you'd only be bitten once with it, and you're not really getting bitten because they are 2 distinctively different builds. So it's just a little strange. It's strange that they have 2 separate listings for what is essentially the same box. But it just gives you have this option or this option. But anyway, let's get in there. Okay. Whoosh, it's a big one as well. That is different again. Okay, so that's an 80 mil base, which is interesting for our friend Arch-Kavalos. And then we have, oh yeah, okay. So these are the 2 variants. Arch-Kavalos Zandtos with the rearing horse, and then Liege Kavalos with the less rearing horse. And here we go. Color where you need it. That's the most important thing. And then, speaking of color, a nicely detailed painting guide on the back. You too can paint like this. With practice. And we'll have a look at these sprues now. Oh man. Was the body of that thing made of skulls? I think it was. No! Look at that! What? It's made of skulls? Or are they stuck onto its skeleton, or... It's just full of skulls inside. I mean, you're not going to see those, are you? Just on the edge there, through the gaps. Wow. What is this? Oh, the inside of a column. Same over here. Oh, that's amazing. That's going to be so cool when it's built. And the other sprue is... Well, it's obviously less spectacular than... Well, maybe it's not. No, it's less spectacular, but that first sprue is a hard one to follow. Because you find out your horse is just made of skulls inside. Wow. How do you follow that? Very much looking forward to building that now. And now we get on to the last one, the Gothizzar Harvester. The one I have been in love with ever since seeing it on Warhammer Community. I mean, just look at those paws. And there is a variant here that you can build with the different face, the sickles for hands, and has he got a cage in his back full of bodies? And the crows up above, so this is where the crows hang around. Is that a head of... Oh my word. Look at this. Okay, so he's got like... Part of his body is like a cage where he just collects the bodies from the battlefield, I guess. Oh yeah, monstrous collector of fallen cadavers. Like, look at this. I'm not complaining. This is the best thing I've seen all day. Okay, so Soul Cleaver Sickles. I guess if you're not quite dead, he'll hurry it along and chuck you in his cage, I guess. His collecting receptacle. Okay, so just even glancing at the front of this, now that I've sort of fallen in love with the back, look at the front. Look at what's trapped underneath his, his bones there, his sort of rib cage. He's full of skulls. Down his legs are full of skulls. There's a creature attached to his groin that I'm not even sure what's that in its hand. That's an arm. Of course it's an arm. It's carrying someone's arm that's picked up off the battlefield. So does it go along? It goes along sort of in front of him, grabbing all the detritus, all the cadavers from the ground, and somehow wings it up into... Does it put it into its mouth? And then it ends up going back here into the butt cage? I mean, who thinks of this stuff? I want to meet them, shake their hand. Let's get in here. This is the one I've been waiting for. Pop that out of the way. Another big sort of cavalry style base. Oh. Color where you need it. Lots of variations. Again, that modular mark up top, showing you where you can design it the way you want to design it. And then you can see the two clear variations there. Cool. Yep, and all those bits. And then a lovely painting guide in the back. Alrighty. Let's have a look at this sprue. So 2 different sprues. Gonna save this bigger one till the last. Oh, so this is his big club arm. And of course inside it he has skulls. Because that's where you keep them. Some crows. Super duper stuff. And I don't say super duper very often, but this deserves it. I think I'm on the flip side of here. Some more detail over here. Ah, Warhammer. Every single time I think you have outdone yourself, or that you've reached your peak design-wise, you go and do something like the Ossiarch Bonereapers and just creep back into my nightmares again in the best possible way. Wow. Okay, let's flip it over for the full effect. Any space at all. Oh, look at that. Any space at all in this creature, and it's jammed full of skulls. Whoa. I guess that's from the cage on the back. Is the horrible collection. Ooh. What's going on here? Is it stabbing it there, or is it just sort of, resting there? Huge spinal column, and there, we're done. Okay, so let me see. And much like yesterday's sort of magic YouTube time warp, I'll just be back in a couple of seconds with these all built and primed and ready to be painted, and yeah, just like click my fingers and it's done. And what you won't see are, I don't know how many hours of building is in this. This is a lot. There's a lot to do here. Okay, I'm going to click my fingers and I'm going to be back with them all built. Sure, that took no time at all. They were done in a flash. You may see traces of grey paint on my arms. That's what happens when you try to grey spray and there's a storm happening. Yeah, it was actually curling at like a 90-degree angle as it left the can and just going straight up my arm. So, yeah. Obviously, I moved shortly after. Anyway, we have 6 of these boxes to get through, so let's make a start. This is the sort of the foot soldiers. 20 Citadel Miniatures. This is the Ossiarch Bonereapers Mortek Guard. And there are, like I say, 20 of them. You can mix and match between the ones carrying the swords, the one carrying the spears. There are a couple of sort of special figures in there that you can build up. Now, normally when I'm looking at units that are sort of 20 sized, they can get kind of dull, kind of repetitive. Not in this case, actually. I enjoyed putting these together. I think it's just because you can do the core, sort of the legs and the torso. And then you have the option of going through, you can just clip off all of the spears, all of the swords, the shields. And I was able just to sit with piles of each of those, just sort of cleaning them up. And by cleaning them up, I mean just sort of trimming off a little bit of flash from where I'd clipped it off the sprue. Not really a major deal. Pretty straightforward. I was able to sort of sit with audiobook playing and yeah, just kind of got lost in them. It's weird. I know I said I would get on with this, but here, listen. If I listen to an audiobook while doing a certain miniature and I listen to the same audiobook, it's kind of like if I listen to an album or a particular artist while building a set of miniatures, I will forever associate that book or album or whatever with those miniatures. It's just weird. I was watching Darkest Hour, the Gary Oldman, where he plays Churchill. I was watching that movie while making the Bone Tithe Nexus. It will forever remind me of that movie, which is just bizarre. Anyway, maybe you're the same, maybe I'm just a weirdo. Mortek Guard. So, yes, you get the option of sort of mixing and matching shields, swords, there's a whole bunch of different heads. The poses aren't really that different, but for a unit this size, you're probably not going to want the poses to be that different. You know, they're easily identifiable. They're a smaller miniature. They have a certain stance. Anyhow, you do have some variations on how you can you can see these spears are clearly down here, but the two here are straight up. Swords going off to the side, swords around the front, swords in front of the face. Yeah, you can play around with it. Anyway, there are two sort of slightly more special characters here. I'm just going to flip this over to get their names. So, this one, as you can see it here, has got this very cool banner. Nice shield, sort of tucked in behind his shield there. Weapons-wise, he does have a sword tucked away at the back, which is cool. That's just a stand, you know, there's no hand or anything on that. That is just a sword specifically designed to add on to the back of this miniature. You could, if you wanted to, not actually add that sword or have it the other way, you know, for on the other hip. But this character is called, one second, the Necropolis. And the banner is called the Thorak banner. There you go. And the box art, you can see, oops, you can see the color scheme they've gone with there. So, yep, that's the Necropolis. So that's one of the special ones, and a nice sculpt. The other character here, actually, I've just realized there are 3 specials. So this is the other one. Now, the only reason this one's different is because the sword he has is called the Soul Cleaver Great Blade. It is a 2-handed, very cool sword. The miniature's a pretty nice sculpt as well. So as you can imagine, this is a dedicated sort of, this is a one-off on the sprue, because it's double-handed. Everything else down there in the regular troops are one-handed weapons. And then the last special one is this guy here. This is Mortek Guard. And nice sword, skull emblem on it. Cool little headdress. Nobody else has got that design on top of their helmet. And apart from that, pretty standard. But that is great. So I'll just grab some of these, the ones that stand out. So these are just the regular troops. The weapons they carry are called the Nadirite blade or Nadirite blade. And I did like the way you can sort of, like, there's just something cool about this pose. He's looking through the gap in his shield. Sword is sort of drawn back. And yeah, I like that. Details wise, there's a bunch of detail around these miniatures. But at the same time, I don't think they'd be particularly taxing to paint. You know, you could do fair few sort of like washes, pick out some details in the armor and things. Sort of the shoulder, you know, there, and the up to the, you know, up into this sword, into the hilt here. And make them sort of stand out. But just going to grab one of these ones with the spears. The spears are called, again, Nadirite or Nadirite spear. And again, you have some options on poses here. I like the sort of the peeking over the shield options. It's kind of good. I always try to match the way they're holding their spear to their actual posture. Like this one is just kind of, you know, maybe starting to run forward. Spear is up. And he's giving out a wee bit of a scream, about to have a wee charge there. Grab another. Shield tucked right up to the chin. And in a full-on stabby motion. Then we have another one of these ones. He's just kind of looking off into the middle distance, you know. Maybe waiting for the enemy to charge. And this guy, I just like the kind of that he's sort of lunging forward with it. and giving it a wee bit of a scream. And then here, again, sort of shield sort of pulled over. And this is all just, I mean, you can do these whatever way you want. It's nice that you can have a wee bit of a play and create a bit of drama to it. That he's, you can almost imagine this, the shield pulled up, the lunging spear. Here we've got one of our swordsmen in full sprint, screaming. I angled the arm back a little bit. I thought that would be a nice touch to make it feel that this one is sort of in getting ready to gallop across the battlefield. I like this guy as well. Just these creepy eyes. And these guys have eyeballs, by the way. So there are eyeballs inside those skulls. But I liked him just peeking over the top of the shield. And you can see some of the tattered clothing. So these are the regular sort of foot soldiers of the Bonereaper army. And these are all sort of constructs. So they gather the souls, they gather the body parts, and abracadabra, moosh them together, and you get the elite troops of Nagash. Pretty cool. These are not just simply golems, not just simply reanimated skeletons. These are soulful creatures, all in service of Nagash. And I think we've talked about them enough. Let's get on to the next lot. In terms of my level of interest in the different miniatures within the Ossiarch Bonereapers, the one I was looking forward to least was probably the infantry, if I'm honest about it. And second to that would have been the endless spells. The regular foot soldiers turned out to be fantastic. Lots of fun to put together. And the spells actually turned out to be pretty cool as well. I'll start with the one that is my least favorite, which is this, what's this called? The Bone Tithe Shrieker. It's this one here. It's kind of this bone tithe structure here in the middle. And it's gone off for a wander, and it's got these 4 skulls. It's alright. It's fairly bland. You could probably do some pretty spectacular paint effects on this this sort of ectoplasm or spectral mist or whatever that is. There is some pretty cool engraving on the tithe part of it. But yeah, it didn't do much for me. After that, this one's pretty cool. He's got this whole tattered cloak thing that what looked more like, not tentacles, but almost spinal going down into the ground there, and certainly becomes a lot more spinal as it comes up through the body and then into the skeleton. Pretty terrifying. Super sharp claws. I was scared I was going to snap these when I was cutting them off the sprue, but I followed the sort of flow of cutting off sprue. Like, my workflow is always to go for the most fragile part. Start with the most fragile part. So if it's connected to the sprue by like a knuckle here or something, support it with your hand. I've said it before, but support it with your hand and then clip. And then go to the next most fragile part, the next thinnest part, and cut there. If you start it somewhere thick, you'll end up causing damage up here somewhere. Anyway, I am repeating myself, but it's well worth sort of remembering when cutting these off the sprue. Great detail in the face and everything. I do like the way the cloak hangs off the body. And yeah, it's alright. It's the bird though, right? I knew the bird was going to be cool. I just didn't know how cool the bird was going to be. And the reason the bird is so cool, I mean, as a standalone, I mean, it's a lovely sculpt. Love the detail on the wings. They're all just like bits of bone and things, I think, make up the wings. Yeah. And then that weird exposed spine, and then the very sort of phoenix-like tail. That's not what's the coolest thing about the bird. The coolest thing about the bird is where it seems to come from, or what it seems to be doing. I'm not really sure. So you get all of this sort of spectral energy, these wisps, but they are coming out of the bodies on the ground. This one is actually pulling what looks like the soul out of the eye sockets of this body, this corpse. Similar case over here. You can see where the face is almost sort of, hopefully you can see that. You see where it's kind of stretched out and distorted, and the sort of the shape of the face is this is super cool. Like, look at this. The soul just being sucked out of these bodies. And whether that's where the energy to create this spell comes from, or whether that's something that the spell does as it travels over the battlefield, I don't know. Maybe somebody can put it into the comments. The actual visual effect is haunting and absolutely incredible. Here you can see another one coming out of the mouth. This sort of ectoplasmy looking thing. That's just terrific. Terrific stuff. And a huge surprise. Next up, we've got the Kavalos Deathriders. Cavalry unit here. Again, we're talking mooshed together body parts. The horses themselves their internals are just full of skulls and bones, and it's amazing. We do see the addition of the crows. Let me just go to, so this is the Necropolis. The creatures that all of this group are called bone-crafted riders on morbid steeds. Morbid is right. So this is the Necropolis. This is our banner unit. We got this murder of crows up top. And they are just lovely. Great detail throughout here. And a really cool looking miniature. Love the face and the horse. Love these fangs underneath. And you can see just some of the bones and skulls inside the body cavity there. And lovely miniatures to put together, I've got to say. Really nice. So after the Necropolis, we've got the other special miniature, which is Mortek Guard. I apologize if my pronunciation is off. When I was looking at the designers behind this, there's a video on YouTube. It turns out it's Jervis Johnson is one of the designers. I'm not sure if he was the lead on the project, but he of course designed my favorite game of all time, Blood Bowl. So Jervis, if I'm mispronouncing these names, I apologize. But let's have a look at this. I just love this sort of mishmash skull. And as you look at the details in the body, and look inside the body, look inside the cavity there, you can see skulls and things. There's just all sorts going on. And it's funny because a lot of it, I mean, you see a skull peeking out there through the rump here. And so many of these details are just lost inside the miniature. But it doesn't matter because you get such pleasure when you're building them. You see all these details. And I just think it's fantastic. This guy's got a very cool sword. Great helmet, and yeah, the horse is quite elegant looking, doing a bit of dressage there as it stomps through its foes. Horse in much more of a gallop here. The rider is carrying a spear. I placed the spear very close to the horse's head, much like a sort of almost like they're jousting. I just kind of like the idea of that. The spear could just rest on this piece of armor here, and the rider could concentrate on accuracy rather than on balance. Again, you can see the skulls peeking out there at the legs of the horse. This horse almost has a beak, so you can see they've just grabbed whatever skulls they've gathered over time. And love it. Next, another spear-carrying rider. Face-wise, you know, again, sort of eyeballs, which is a great addition. I think that's a lot of, it would be so easy just to make those hollow sockets, but the fact that they've included eyeballs is brilliant. You can see more detail on the skulls here down the inside thigh of the horse's leg. These are just all the tops of skulls. You can see it peeking out here, and a little bit just underneath inside there as well. So yeah, a huge amount of pleasure building them. You see all those tiny details, and again, a real pleasurable experience. This looks like a cow skull on top of this horse's body, and just like the soldiers themselves, everything is just construct of all the debris they find on the battlefield, but also the bodies that they gather at the tithes. So when they're putting out the big sort of, like you saw in yesterday's video, the huge towers that the villages and the towns have to go and leave bodies at to appease Nagash. This is where they just gather it and smoosh it all together. It's just crazy. It's crazy. Who thinks up this stuff? I want to meet them, you know, especially if it's Jarvis Johnson. Right, what's next? This is what's next. These are the Necropolis Stalkers. They are towering undead war constructs, and they are towering. Let's just grab a Mortek Guard for scale. And yeah, towering is right. Almost double the height of regular troopers. So I know I called them all Necropolis Stalkers, but if you do them in this variant, which is with the halberd rather than the swords, they are actually called Mortek Guard. So I went with 1 Mortek Guard and 2 Necropolis Stalkers. I just, you know, there was always going to be an uneven number of one of the units, so I kind of like the 4 hands with the swords. Let's start with this one here. So this is one of the Necropolis Stalkers, and you can see that huge swords made light work by having a couple of extra arms. Also, this guy is huge, so he can cope with a sword that is probably his height. Details wise, much like the rest of these, they're just packed full of tiny little details, tiny little touches. You can see the runes of the writing on the sword. You've got these 4 heads. So good luck surprising them. And yeah, I really like those. Pretty straightforward to build. The only thing that was a little bit sketchy was when you were attaching so this is the other, Necropolis Stalker. When you were attaching the legs to the pelvis here, they did have a key. Oops, sorry about the camera. They did have a sort of a key design to the connection, so it could really only go one way. But if you're using plastic cement, sometimes that if the key design is subtle, plastic cement, because of its nature, will kind of make it go a little bit gooey. So unless you get a really clean connection straight away, there can be some play in it, some flexing. But I didn't really find a huge amount of issue. What I just did was I made sure that I had their feet planted here. I kind of held their feet and positioned it and sort of squeezed in at the pelvis to make sure that everything was sort of lined up. Obviously, this was before the arms and everything went on, so it wasn't a huge issue. And I think they look great. This is another one of these, sort of the 4 hands, but rather than 2 huge swords, gone for 4 swords. Why wouldn't you? And especially when you get 4 heads. It did get me thinking, like, does one head control one arm? But that started to hurt my head, thinking about 4 heads controlling these 4 swords. But they look really great. And then finally, the one Mortek Guard that I did. It's this one. Pretty dramatic. Really cool face. Lots of nice sort of tucked away detail. The halberd was pretty neat. You can just see it there. See the 2 arms on the 2 left arms? They're actually holding onto that shield together. That's how much detail they went into this. They could have easily just had that hidden away as nothing, but the 2 hands holding on was lovely. It was a little bit fiddly sticking that bit together where it goes into the shield. But again, it just kind of, you just take your time with it. Drive fit where you can first to make sure it just sort of feels right. And then try to just get it stuck in there as quickly as possible once you've got a good idea of the angle that it's going in at. But yeah, that's the Mortek Guard and the Necropolis Stalkers. So here we have Arch-Kavalos Zandtos with the rearing horse. You can do it as the Liege Kavalos option, which is the much less dramatic horse. I like the look of this. I like the look of the sort of the rearing up and the drama of it. This warrior is just like, he's done his speech. He's ridden along the front of the troops and he's just finally getting the horse to rear before he just gallops it across the field. Or, as you can see down here, this little night hunt has spooked the horse, which is kind of, it's probably not. I think it would take a lot to spook a bone construct Ossiarch horse. But, it just kind of popped up out of the ground and maybe it'd give it a little startle. Anyway, let's have a look at the miniature. Actually, I really enjoyed this one. This was another one of these ones that's full of bones inside and wonderful hidden details. You can see the skulls inside the body there. Bones sort of holding together other bones. And there's quite a lot going on. It's got a really cool sort of dragon-like head on this one. I thought that was pretty special. And you'll see all the little bones and bits sticking out. Miniature itself, cool sword on the back. And there's the little night hunt. It's carrying like a little pyramid thing. I don't know if you can see that, which has a few runes on it as well, which is just a great little detail. And it's sort of wrapped around this shattered column. And if we can just see the face of this character. Got the shield up. You can see where he's pulling back on the reins. The reins do actually connect to a hand in behind there, which is another one of those lovely sort of hidden details. And I think it's a dramatic looking miniature. Again, it just shows the madness of this army. The fact that they're just sticking together all these bits. I mean, the 3 tails was that absolutely necessary when they were constructing this horse, but I guess it had to be something pretty special for a marquee figure like this. As I'm not sure what the rank equivalent would be, but like something like a general, something like that. I guess he's going to have a horse with a dragon's head and 3 tails. I just loved it, even if it does get spooked out by the odd wandering night hunt. Yeah, I really enjoyed putting that one together. To say that I saved the best to last is a gross understatement. The Gothizzar Harvester was a miniature I fell in love with at first sight. When I first saw the image on Warhammer Community, I was like thinking, look at this thing, the big ball fists, the big open maw, the armor and everything else that's going on. I had no idea how much cooler this miniature was in the flesh, how much cooler it was to build. And as you build it, you go through, you get the luxury of seeing all the details. the hidden details, the tucked away stuff. I mean, we saw it with the horses and everything and the other miniatures, but this is at another level. And there's actually a story going on in this miniature. There's a whole thing happening. Just want to give you the sort of it's like on the Games Workshop site, the 360 view. Although they're generally painted. Mine are painted, they're just painted GrayPrimer. Don't judge me. But look. Every space is crammed full of body parts. Every single nook and cranny, you can see them just peeking out around the entire thing. This creature itself, of course, is a construct of all the others. All sort of bits and pieces. But let's look at the narrative of it. So, its job is to go around collecting the body parts. It really is a garbage truck, a bin lorry. And evidence of this is in its bin lorry back that's full of body parts. So it wanders around and it uses these big ball fists to smoosh the body parts up. And the creepy little hands underneath here, you can see them. And the creepy little hands at the sides, you can see them here. This one's just having a fight over this, like a bone or something. The crow's wanting this and the little hands trying to hold on to it. And that's what I mean about the narrative. There's a little story happening here. But you can see all the little hands. So the hands lift the body parts. You know, you can actually see where this hand is passing to this hand, and then this one is going to throw it over the top. Like, how cool is that? You can see even in action, this hand here reaching to collect this skull. Well, this other hand has got an arm. So it grabs the arm, passes it back through the chain, and then wings it over the top unless it's accosted by a crow. And you can see the little face underneath there, I guess in control of these arms. So this entity here is controlling that part. And the same on the other side. It would be grabbing and sort of passing this way too. So this just guy wanders around smooshing stuff up. Little guy underneath picks up the bits and passes it up the chain, where it eventually ends up in here. So the narrative on this side is, well, you've got this crow having a fight over this bit before it goes into the back. Although why it would pick that particular bit when it's got a whole bucket load of them in here. Anyway, but on this side you've got him about to collect the skull, but he has also collected a Stormcast head, which is just fantastic. So it's handed to this hand over here, Stormcast head, and then just as it's about to go in, the final hand, hopefully you can see it here, is just like, no. No, I don't want your Stormcast head. That has got no place in Nagash's construct army. And that is just brilliant. I just love that little detail. I don't know how it got through so many of 3 parts of a 4-part chain, but I guess this last hand has a bit more discretion. And just you can see a leg hanging off the back there as well. So this is a Kraken model. Now there is an option to build this with scythes or sickles, sorry. So you have an option to build it with the Soul Cleaver sickle, which is, I think it's a cool looking mini, but nowhere near as sort of dramatic as these big ball fists of steel. And that is it. We've got to the end of the Ossiarch Bonereapers. I had a huge amount of fun putting these together. It was a ton of work, but it was a pleasure throughout. At no point was I bored. There was always some tiny detail to keep my attention. I just would gladly do this all again. And the only shame is that all those secret hidden details, once you glue the miniature together, they're just locked inside and hidden. But it makes for a really pleasurable building experience. And yeah, 10 out of 10 for the Ossiarch Bonereapers army. Great, great stuff there. And that's it. Thank you so much for coming along on this 2-day journey into the Ossiarch Bonereapers. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope there's something that got your attention there, got your, sparked your imagination. There's certainly no shortage of imagination that's gone into the design of these, and an absolute pleasure it was to go through them. And that pretty much wraps it up. The best miniature in this entire army, in my opinion, and one of my favorite miniatures to build of all time. No kidding. Honestly, that was an absolute pleasure to put that together. Let's wrap it up there. Please like and subscribe. If you think your friends or something would like these videos, don't forget to share as well. You can comment down below, and you can also have a look at the images I post over on Instagram. If you just search for GrayPrimer Social, I think there'll be a link in the description below for that as well. And that's us. We're all done. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will catch you next time. Thanks again. Take care.